I'm doing this video, it's about the shadow from the moon that's casted onto the earth during the solar eclipse, and atmospheric magnification, or the lensing of the atmosphere, and the implications of the magnification or the lensing of the atmosphere. So what I did was I set up this experiment, got a light source and a little round ball, and as you can see, if you put the object up against the light, it blocks it out totally. Now as the source gets further away from the light source and closer to the surface where the shadow is being casted upon, the shadow gets smaller, but it never gets smaller than the object casting the shadow. Now as you pull the object further away from the surface that the shadow is being casted upon and closer to the light source, the shadow gets bigger. So they tell us the moon is 237,000 miles away from Earth out in space, and it's 2,100 miles across. Now one would have to ask, during the solar eclipse, you would think the shadow casted upon the Earth would be much bigger than the moon itself. But they tell us it's smaller.
So what I did was I set up an experiment. And the experiment is if the atmosphere works like a magnifying glass, then let's see what happens if the shadow is coming through a magnifying glass. Now what I did was I took a marker, marked around the edge of the shadow as best I could. So now we're going to put in some atmosphere. This is a magnifying sheet to mimic the atmosphere. And yes, it can cast a shadow smaller than magnifying glass. So what I'm going to do is I have this light hung to the ceiling, and I'm going to pull it up. We'll see what happens to the shadow as it's coming through the atmosphere. As you can see, it's smaller than the object. If I keep pulling it up, it's slightly smaller than the object. As the light source gets closer, the larger the shadow gets. Now if I pull the light source further away, the shadow gets smaller. So what I did was I put marker around the shadow. Now we'll take the ball out that I'm using, and you can see that the shadow is slightly smaller than the object. Not by much. In. So what I decided to do was I'll throw in another layer of atmosphere magnification and we'll see what happens. It's much smaller than the object itself. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to raise the light as high as I can raise it. The kicker to this is it won't get any smaller. The light gets to a point where no matter how far away you pull the light away, the shadow no longer gets any smaller.
So here's what science tells us. They show the sunlight coming through and it actually shrinking the shadow of the moon, which causes the path of totality. And outside that, you have another shadow. Well, as I just demonstrated, the only way for this to happen is if it goes through some sort of magnification to get it to do this. Well, I don't know of anything out in the vacuum of space that would cause magnification other than the atmosphere. But if this is caused by magnification of the atmosphere, then this is what you would see on the surface of Earth. So as you can see, I set this experiment up, and the only way to get this shadow outside of the object is through magnification, through the atmosphere, where you have the dark spot here, and then you have the shading on the outside of it. If you pulled the magnifying glass or the magnification of the atmosphere away, it would just be one full dark shadow. And as you can see, that's what they show here. But this is much more exaggerated. The shadow that I show is not much larger than the very dark spot, but we'll give them that. So I am getting to a point with all this information. So as you can see, we have to have magnification to get this effect. As I have demonstrated with the way they tell us that the solar eclipse works, and the way the shadow cast onto the Earth, that you have to have magnification for that to work. So here's the point I'm getting at. If the atmosphere works as a magnifying glass or a lens, then, and you can test this yourself, as you pull the magnification further away from the object, you're going to get to a point where it becomes blurry and you're unable to focus. So, if the atmosphere works like a lens or a magnifying glass, that's just more proof that the sun and the moon are extremely close to our atmosphere, or otherwise you would be unable to take clear, focused pictures of the sun and the moon. So the shadow that's casted down on to the earth from the moon during the solar eclipse, the only way that it can be smaller than the object itself is if there is atmospheric magnification or lensing of the atmosphere. So again, if I can take clear, detailed pictures of the moon, that is 237,000 miles off the face of the detailed pictures of the sun, that is 93 million miles away. How does this work? Through a magnification. If one object is further away than the other object, then I should only be able to focus on the closer object. The further object away would be too blurry for me to get a good focus on. Again, this is just my opinion.
The show began in the west, and the weather cleared along most of the track to about the center of the continent. Brandon, Manitoba was one of the best places for spectators.
Beautiful event. I'd never seen one.
Your first?
Yeah.
Would you be inclined to go on to the next one?
I don't know. I can afford to go down to Kenya, southern Mexico, depends on the time of year and other things. But 2017, if I'm still around, wherever that one's coming across North America.
It was spectacular.
What was your impression?
Oh,
No words
best
for
thing I've ever seen.
Oh, I think it ranks right up there at the top. It was a particularly beautiful corona. There were many prominences, especially. That they're not the corona, but at the base of the corona, there were many of these prominences which look reddish all around the sun, which made it particularly beautiful.
The greatest free spectacle on this earth is over. It has been judged an unqualified success, and while there will be other eclipses in other parts of the world, there will not be another performance on this stage until the year 2339.